Just a quick recap on our story thus far. Our boy Zhang Ze just reached the 8th floor of the magic domain with his posse, and now he has just finished dealing with the surprise visit of the new vice principal of his little sister's school, the mysterious and powerful Miss Xiang. After discussing his future plans, the beauty bid the siblings farewell while leaving her card. It was apparent that she wants to pull Zhang Ze into the National Security Bureau down the line. He asked Xiao Feng just when Miss Xiang became the vice principal of the school and was surprised to learn that it was only last week. It could not be more obvious that the organization behind her is keeping an eye on him. Zhang Ze opted to put this matter to bed for now, as he tasked his sister to make dinner for herself while she enters the magic domain a little earlier tonight. She's been growing increasingly curious about what the magic domain really is. The 8th floor is as serene and beautiful as ever. The wide fields of foliage and colorful flowers are in a perpetual state of bloom. Violet Dragon King and Giant God were already waiting for Rakshasa on the platform. These two were even earlier birds than him. As they are right now, the party can only hope that the elite boss has already been defeated by some powerful senior, so they can sneak off to the 9th floor without much difficulty. While they were standing around, waiting for the other party members to show up, there was some growing commotion coming from the other side of the platform. It seems like the standard parties on this floor are not accepting archers for their excursions, and the archers are looking for an explanation. One of the party leaders insisted that archers can't compete with mages in damage, and their defenses are too low, wasting the efforts of healers. They just take up space for more useful members. This was not an uncommon sight in the magic domain, Giant God explained. Many archers find themselves in unfavorable circumstances like this, especially as the level gets tougher. Rakshasa decided to step up and call the attention of the rejected archer. He proposed that he wants to create an archers guild right at that moment, and anyone who wants to join would be welcome to do so. This was an unexpected proposal coming from an unknown guy. No one in their right mind would establish a guild built for archers only. Rakshasa continued that he won't charge a cent and won't cause losses for the members either. But the more promising stipulation is that he vowed to help everyone pass this 8th floor. The more conventional parties laughed at this idea. Everyone knows that building a guild for a supposedly inferior class would just make an equally inferior guild. They thought that Rakshasa was just a boasting idiot trying to scam these poor saps. Even Giant God tried to talk him out of the idea. A guild with just archers can't possibly defeat a boss after all. Once the centaurs of this floor attack, they will be in a grim position. Dragon King backed Giant God up, but he reassured them not to worry because he can back his words up with actions. The archers were still apprehensive, but they didn't really have any other choice. Besides, it's just joining a guild. It's no big deal. They've been considered good-for-nothings for too long. They have nothing to lose. If worst comes to worst, they'll just wipe out together. The first one to join up was named Arrow Through the Heart. Rakshasa announced that he'll only allow 100 to join for free. But after they pass the 8th floor today, new members will have to pay up to join. This prompted a landslide of archers flocking towards Rakshasa to join in, as nobody else wants to take them in anyway. They are just tired of getting treated like trash. It's already impossible to go back now that a massive crowd has formed. Still, Rakshasa is a comrade of the party, so they might as well join in too. Little Princess was extremely apprehensive, while Li Yu, Yu Weiying, and Bunny Girl were all in. They believe in Rakshasa to make the impossible happen. Since nobody has any heavy objections, the party has also consolidated on the newly established Archers Guild. Still, they need to ask for Rakshasa's permission to join. This is his guild after all. Not only will he let them join in, but since they're comrades at arms, they'll also be the guild's core VIP members and will enjoy the best benefits. Giant God is not here to discuss benefits and all that. They need to deal with the current issue first. How are these hordes of archers going to help them pass the floor boss, the Centaur General? It did not take too long to gather up 100 archers that have been suffering countless rejections on this floor. The first thing that Rakshasa handed down as an order was for everyone to visit the trading forum to buy shovels and spades. This was not what Arrow Through the Heart was expecting at all. Rakshasa even doubled down that if shovels and spades ran out, they need to buy any other equipment that can dig into soil, like long axes and all that. The show will be starting soon. Orders have been handed down. The people are assembled. It's about time to head on out. Other parties saw this giant group of archers and thought that water might have gotten into these people's brains. They don't have defense and would be torn to shreds by the herd of centaur cavalrymen. That's the consensus that the other adventurers have. Everyone neatly lined up with their bows in their hands and their quivers full. They're going in blindly, putting their trust in Rakshasa's bizarre plan. It did not take too long until they spotted the first obstacle on the road, a spread-out congregation of centaurs lounging on the field. From now on, everyone needs to follow Rakshasa's orders to a T. He'll go in solo and take the monsters head-on, and all the archers need to do is shoot from behind. Giant God warned him to be extremely careful as these beasts are extremely quick. But there's no need for all that warning. The party doesn't even need to trouble themselves with this initial clash. Drawing out his S-rank Blood Fiend bow, Rakshasa called to his archers to maintain control of their bows and arrows. They just need to point and shoot at the enemies that he lures in. In this massive guild of pure archers with little diversity, the first arrow unleashed was from the guild leader Rakshasas. The sharp arrowhead glided through the open air, whistling through the wind and traveling at unprecedented speed and force. It eventually hits a centaur cavalryman right in the ass. That is one way to get a monster's undivided attention and rage. The next thing you know, it was already rushing in the direction of the shooter with its double swords drawn. The order for aim was also shouted out. As soon as the monster entered the optimal space, Rakshasa just calmly mandated everyone to shoot to their heart's content. A rain of deadly arrows coming from different bows and attributes started pouring in one direction. The individual damages were paltry, but when you stack up 100 of these, then you got yourself a domineering way to kill enemies without putting oneself in harm's way. The combined destruction of 100 people combined is equal to a little more than 10,000 points of damage. That is a scary amount of damage for the 8th floor. They did not stop at just one killing. The Archers Guild quickly moved on and rained down another hail of arrows on the unfortunate victims. This time, multiple centaur cavalrymen faced their end one after another. They could not even get into the range of their deadly melee weapons. For the first time in forever, the archers felt amazing, unstoppable even. It turns out that they weren't trash after all. It's just that no one tried the effective method. When they pool their strengths, they are capable of truly powerful feats like this. They just need to calm the battlefield as there are still many more monsters up ahead. Many more loot to plunder in their deaths. The other conventional parties that originally tagged along to see 100 archers die in combat were left with their mouths open in shock. The trash class has gained quite a bit of confidence in their weapons. They could not have done this without Rakshasa and his masterful maneuvers acting as bait to unsuspecting monsters. None of these dumb centaurs saw what was in store for them. They just kept on running blindly and dying with countless arrows stuck to their bodies. It either pierced their leather armors, skewered their brains, made them bleed from deep wounds, or any other way that a sharp and pointy arrowhead can kill. You cannot deny it. Rakshasa is a generational talent. He was single-handedly making this entire process possible with his swift moves to lure in beasts. Consolidating all these hopeless archers into one group and making them move as a single unit was a stroke of genius that even the dumb as bricks Dragon King could see. Rakshasa modeled this style after the Qin state of the Warring States period that swept all the major states with their bows and arrows. Dragon King tried his best to access his mind and make sense of that statement, but it was gibberish to him. You can't blame the guy. This is history from a whole different world. After cruising through the 8th floor and mowing down countless centaur stragglers, the guild had finally arrived at the outskirts of their main goal. They are right outside the centaur's fortress, and the boss is right inside. Everyone turned to the guild leader for what's next. Perhaps they will be using the shovels and spades now. Up front at the fortress entrance, their next move is to use the equipment to dig a deep hole around it. The hole must be at least 10 meters deep, taller than a centaur. They will use these trenches to trap and kill hundreds of monsters efficiently. The 100 archer army quickly went to work and pooled their strengths to dig trenches all around the fortress. Giant God has only one question in mind. How are they going to get the enemies out? Well, it'll be simple. Rakshasa will go in by himself and take the aggro of hundreds of deadly beasts. It will be dangerous, so Giant God proposed that he should be the one to go in since he was the most durable person here. But Rakshasa had already taken note of everything. His agility is at 50 points, and he brought something special for survival. A large grade B agility-enhancing potion. This concoction will essentially double his already abnormal agility stat for a whole minute. Giant God saw how prepared he was and relented. With all the extraordinary manpower a man could ask for, the deep trenches were finished in just 10 minutes. Now comes the hard part, luring the beasts to their inevitable deaths. Giant God and Liu Yueying gave him one last reminder that he must keep his safety as the #1 priority instead of the mission. As he jumped to the other side of the chasm between the fortress and the forces, he just gave them a reassuring look, telling them not to worry one bit. Dragon King wasn't sure if one man can succeed in such a crucial mission alone. If it's Rakshasa they're talking about, then one cannot help but believe. There are so many tents inside this cursed fortress. No wonder the boss can command more than 100 fearsome cavalrymen on a dime. After expertly maneuvering through these structures, Rakshasa finally caught a glimpse of the supposed boss of this region. The silhouette alone would send shivers down anyone's spine. It's an elite boss after all. It seems that not a single person has passed this floor since they came up. It was already bad enough that they must fight against a boss that commands an army. Making that same boss an elite monster is just overkill. Still, if Rakshasa can see the enemy, he'll kill it no matter what. Equipping his trusty S-rank bow, he took cover and pulled its drawstring to the limit to maximize force. Of course, he was not really aiming for a one-shot, one-kill. That would be impossible. He just wanted to get the general's attention, and he succeeded on that front. This elite monster was built differently. It can actually speak the human tongue and speak in a way that a medieval general would. He called on to his centaur soldiers to heed his command to sacrifice the intruder to their battle flag. Rakshasa took note that a yellow signal flag must be the summoning sign of cavalrymen. And he was right. It only took a couple of seconds for the monsters equipped with fearsome blades to come out of their tents and bum-rush the intruder without mercy. Rakshasa stood his ground for a few more moments. He needs to make sure that he can get the full horde out of hiding in one pull for a more efficient kill run later. When the cavalrymen were only a few meters from him, he finally pulled out the secret sauce, the grade B agility enhancing potion. Right when that elixir hits, Rakshasa has never felt so fast in his life. It gave him the confidence to talk trash to the four-legged beast trying to catch a two-legged person. On account of the enhanced agility, it did not take too long for him to reach the gates of the fortress. Now, the archers and the cavalrymen are within earshot of each other. The party spotted Rakshasa being chased by a horde of formidable monsters and could not help but worry for their comrade. Centaur cavalrymen were oozing killing intent while trying their hardest to catch up and kill a single intruder with the full force of their sharp blades. Whether the newly established guild wins or not depends on this very moment. They need these cavalrymen to bite on the bait as Rakshasa maneuvers on the thin rope. He took a jump to cover the remaining length of the rope while still holding onto his bow. It sagged a little bit, but it seemed to support his weight just fine. The look of worry was evidently painted on Liu Ying's beautiful face. Letting the intruder that got as far as their general's position go by without as much as a scratch would be a massive blow to the pride of the beasts. They were so compelled to catch up and slaughter Rakshasa that they did not even notice the trenches laid down right in front of them. The vanguard fell, and it had a cascading effect on the others. This was the prime time for the second part of the plan. Utilize the Archer Guild's strength on the helpless monsters down the pit. Arrow through the heart, along with the other 99 archers, collectively drew their bowstrings and aimed at the abundance of targets down below. Just like how they slaughtered their way through the entrance of this fortress, they knocked hundreds of arrows continuously, causing a rain of steel. Individually, their damage numbers were paltry, to say the least, but when you pile it up and you take away the enemy's ability to dodge or counter, then you have yourself a centaur cleansing. It did not take too long before every single horse in that hole turned into nothingness, their HP values dipping down to 0. The party was just on the sidelines throughout this whole sequence. Dragon King could not help but feel cold sweat running through his body at the sight of such efficient massacre. The archers up top have not felt this amazing since choosing to take up the bow. They usually rely on kiting enemies while trying to sneak in an attack or two. It was aggravating. Looking at the corpses turning into nothing made them feel like they chose the right class, and they were not trash. That's about it for the first part of the plan. Some were tasked with loot cleanup to be placed in the guild inventory to be divided among everyone after the mission. These guys had never seen this much loot in their entire careers as archers. They could not help but smile from ear to ear. That must have been more than 300 centaur cavalrymen worth of demon soul orbs in the span of a few minutes of easy work. Giant God remained vigilant as the boss commanded 3 waves of centaur cavalrymen. The next 2 waves will be more dangerous. Thankfully, Rakshasa prepared enough agility potions. While the other archers deal with battlefield cleaning, he'll go in for another lure session inside the fortress. Everyone just look at the back of their lone guild leader as he takes on yet another deadly role for the second wave of combat. This time is a lot easier for Rakshasa after figuring out the layout of the interior fortress. But the enemies that he was pulling were anything but easy. They are faster, stronger, and, more importantly, they were equipped with armor up to the wazoo. This is bad. Those are armored centaur cavalrymen. They spell so much more trouble compared to the leather armors of the previous wave. as Rakshasa effortlessly jumps to the other side of the trench. Giant God was stressing if their arrows could even pierce through the decked-out armors of the monsters. They cannot have much time to think about it, so the only thing they could do is start blasting. Everyone needs to make use of all their strength, including skills if they have any. They can't afford to get stuck now at such a critical point. This second wave will not go on without any hiccups. Most of the arrows that they rained down were totally useless against the menacing suit of armors. Still, some of the stronger archers and some well-placed arrows managed to deal damage, albeit smaller in numbers to matter much. Seeing that they're not really doing any significant damage at this point, shooting like this won't be able to give them enough time, and the enemies will just respawn in the fortress. Dragon King was in a panic. He suggested retreating for now. They won't be going out empty-handed with the first wave's loot anyway, but they'll be throwing all the efforts they've already put in, and it'll compromise the trust the archers have in their leader. Retreating now might even cause a sizable chunk of the archers to leave the guild entirely. So for now, Rakshasa ordered everyone to halt their fire while he devises a plan B. One thing's for sure, they are not retreating. They won't back down until the boss is down. The answer is to not kill the armored cavalry just yet. This order just confused the members, including Giant God, even more. The next move is quite simple. Leave the armored beasts in the pit while Rakshasa goes into the fortress again to lure the last wave along with the Centaur General to finish this thing once and for all. The last few steps of the plan were dangerous, but this is on a whole other level of danger. What he wants to do would take 9 lives to pull off, maybe even 10. They think that the masked leader is being too impulsive, but Rakshasa seemed oddly calm while he insists that he has another plan in mind. They just need to stay put. This time, Liu Wei Ying was extra worried to the point of grabbing him by the hand and stopping him from leaving. This girl really was genuinely concerned about his well-being. She wanted to put her foot down and stop Rakshasa from plunging into certain death. When she grabbed his hand, he noticed that she started blushing profusely. Liu Wei Ying wanted to instill into his mind that an elite boss can easily one-shot any of them, and that they must retreat and regroup. He turned to her, looked her in the eyes, and told her that if she wants him to listen, then he needs a kiss first. Hearing this ridiculous heroic ruse made her blush even more. Liu Wei Ying felt her heart flutter and almost jump out of her plot armor. She stumbled on her words, but ultimately agreed to give our boy that kiss.
Sensational.
Unfortunately for us, Rakshasa wasn't about that life. He was just kidding to loosen her grip, enabling him to jump back into action, back to the grind. Of course, he knows that this might just be a suicide mission if any other person tries at solo-cutting the general. But he's no ordinary person, and he has a kobold king. Internally, he didn't expect that beauty to care that much about him. The army of archers were not aware of his summoning ability, so this is their first time seeing the leader casually summoning a floor boss out of thin air. This time, it's him and his kobold king against the third wave of the Centaur army in their home court. Seeing their guild leader ride and a floor boss into battle against another floor boss was unfathomably cool. It won him a lot of points in his archer army. Rakshasa immediately ordered his unconventional mount to start blasting the freaking dynamites, and this dog delivered. The Centaur General felt insulted by that. It turns out that the guy hates lowly humans to the bone. The general swung his massive spear forward. And he was not alone. He had his elite posse for the third wave aiming their various blades to Rakshasa as well. This battle will now depend all on the Kobold King that he endearingly named Brother Doghead. They need to blast these mobs to their heart's content. Brother Doghead did not waste any time. He was all about business. Call that a booming enterprise. Meanwhile, his owner was busy chubbing on that agility juice. Even with the explosive power of Brother Doghead, there aren't just way too many cavalrymen in here. They can't even face the boss directly with all the angry mobs. Rakshasa only has one more potion left in his inventory. It's starting to look like he might need to sacrifice Brother Doghead to clutch this mission. But the Centaur General was relentless. It was already assured that the only outcome for those that dare to intrude into his camp is death. Rakshasa was maintaining his composure though, as Brother Doghead was chucking unlimited dynamites all over the place, taking down herds upon herds of centaurs. His HP has started running low from attacks everywhere. Rakshasa finally made the final call to sacrifice his summon. There was no other recourse to get out of this pinch that he put himself into. All the centaurs flocked to Brother Doghead and his last legs while the general goes after Rakshasa. It was the Kobold King's final piece of attack, a self-destruct mode of nuclear proportions. With one last howl, Brother Doghead perished along with the entire third wave of monsters. It was the cleanup to end all cleanups. Rest in peace, doggy. you're a real hero." The idle archers on the other side of the trench saw everything happen. Now came the familiar sight of cavalrymen being lured into the hole, but this time they have the Centaur general running at the front. The Archers Guild will finally see just how powerful an elite boss really is. After killing 100 elite cavalrymen on his own, Rakshasa will now be relying on his 100-man army to assist. Giant God assumed the shot caller role, waiting for the general to get in range. Rakshasa narrowly avoided being skewered to death by the general's spear as he inches closer to his own army. He successfully delivered the boss on their doorstep. The archers know that the guild leader risked his life to get them this opportunity. He even lost his summon for it. They cannot let him down. They unleashed their might in a concert of arrows raining down upon the remnants of the Centaur army and its general. The fact that their leader gave his all to get them this opening rung repeatedly in their ranks. They must deliver, or it will be all for naught. It seems like their arrows were more powerful than earlier. The influence that Rakshasa holds over this new guild was rapidly growing stronger. But no matter the quantity nor quality of their shots, it was wholly ineffective against the elite rank boss. This guy won't be brought down by petty tricks alone. In fact, it only insulted him. The Centaur general wanted to sacrifice the blood of these despicable humans for his glorious army, and to do just that, he threw his gigantic spear right above the trench, targeting the clump of archers on the other side. An unfortunate sap holding his bow from the front tanked the brunt of that attack and ate up 2,183 points of critical damage right in the middle of his body. Now everyone is stressed. Not only did the boss avoid and neutralize so many arrows, but it also sports a terrifying one-shot burst damage. Giant God needed to improvise and enhance the defenses of everyone around him while taking on the vanguard role for long-ranged attacks. As expected of an elite boss, this fight will not be won easily even with numbers. So it's about time for another one of Rakshasa's summoned beasts to take the center stage at this junction. It is time for the extremely tricky Blackfin wizard to do its thing on the battlefield. Everyone faced this monster back in the previous floors, so they knew just how broken its abilities were. This might just be the catalyst for their victory in the making. The Blackfin wizard's ominous aura started emanating throughout the whole field. It is time for this fish guy to steal the show with black magic. It pulled out one murloc from Rakshasa's bag of summons and gripped the poor guy tightly by the head. Some would forget just how brutal this wizard's fighting style really was. It quickly drained the life out of one of its own people and started coalescing all that life energy into what can only be called as an orb of death. The Blackfin wizard activated a barrier of black magic as it pushed out a curse on the enemy up front. This dark curse immediately wrapped around the Centaur general, and the effects were apparent right away. The same goes for the helpless Centaur army down in the hole. The Blackfin wizard's first attack immediately took a chunk of the general's army through the first-level curse of death spell. Once under the effects of this curse, magic attacks will deal 20% more on the target. No one would be able to forget the hassle going up against the sacrificial death magic-based attack. It was so broken that even the glorious Centaur army has no defense against it. It's also calculated on max health percentages, so the damage on a boss was huge. Also, once the spell reaches rank 5, it evolves to a certain death attack. Before that could even happen, the Centaur general lifted its spear and took aim at the Blackfin wizard Merfish. One of the seemingly endless supply of deadly spears was now heading for the wizard, and it is not looking good at all. Of course, Giant God comes to the rescue. He is a defensive prodigy after all. With his godly giant shield, even the full-force throw of the elite boss was just peanuts. The rest of the original party also took this chance to finally jump into action. The elite offensive Yu Wei-ying and Dragon King has been on the sidelines, waiting for their turn for far too long. To add to the roster of long-ranged attackers, Rakshasa had also summoned Devour Heaven Frog for suppressive magical fire. Safe in the backlines, the Blackfin wizard continued working on sucking up life force to level up his next spell. While Yu Wei-ying and Dragon King engage the elite boss in close combat, the Curse of Death has climbed to rank 2, dealing even more damage and amplifying all magic attacks by 40%. This should be enough to tip the scales slightly on the guild's favor for now, but an elite boss won't go down without drawing more blood. He sounds like there is nothing in this world he hates more than despicable, vile humans. It finally unleashed one of its spells, Thunderous Shock. It deals a flat 1,000 points of damage to opponents within a 5-meter range while putting them in a 15-second state of dizziness. This was bad news for Yu Wei-ying and Dragon King, who's currently engaging in close quarters combat. Giant God and Rakshasa hurriedly jumped over the trenches in hopes of arriving just in time to aid 2 of their stunned comrades on the other side. The guild leader hurriedly went to Yu Weiying's side and summoned the twin-headed ogre to provide cover in case the general goes their way. And just as Rakshasa thought, the general deemed them as the more threatening pair in the battlefield, focusing its attack on them. This time, it's not just a plain old spear throw with blunt force. It's still a spear attack, but a lot more electrifying in every way possible. Unfortunately for them, this elite boss has enough IQ to feint and attack the higher priority target, the Blackfin Wizard, at the rear. And it was a massive success for the horseman. Just one thunder-infused spear strike took the entire HP bar of the wizard and then some. The general doesn't need to ramp up his offensive power or any of that stuff. He just needs a clear view of the target and his spear in his hand. One swift and well-executed attack took down one of Rakshasa's aces just like that. The Curse of Death was subsequently lifted too. Another one of his precious summoned bosses is down for the count, never to return with that spear skewering its scaly body. Bro is losing summons left and right. Now this is when Rakshasa started sweating nervously. That attack with the electricity was way too much. If any of them catches that, it's lights out for sure. But he can't really think about it that much anymore. He'll fight this horse to death himself if that's the last thing he does. He ordered the long-ranged attackers to aim for the boss alone. Devour Heaven Frog is his only serviceable attacker now. The rain of arrows continued, but the boss seemed evidently unperturbed by the hail of steel. Those arrows might not be able to deal any damage, but it certainly opened an opportunity for Devour Heaven Frog to come in from the top and spew his blazing fury. To everyone's surprise, this single flaming spell has dealt more damage than any of them had managed to dish out thus far, coming in at a whopping 92,885. Such high damage must have some reason behind it. It almost took out the rest of the elite boss's HP bar. Li Yueying was not a slouch. She knows that this is the time to push their unexpected advantage, and she will make sure that it will be done. 3 strikes from her blade dealt quite a bit of damage while the Centaur General was starting to keel over to the side. She figured it out now. A certain death curse might be lifted, but the magic damage amplification is still lingering. Her slash of light counts as light magic, so it dealt more damage than usual. Hearing this gave Rakshasa an idea. This might mean that his S-Class bow's HP absorbing effect would count as enhanced magic damage too. While he was knocking his string back, the boss turned his head for a moment, giving Yu Weiying another opening to dish out some solid magic-based attacks. But the Centaur General is a being with considerable battle experience, and he refuses to fall to the same trick 2 times in a row. This opened Rakshasa's opportunity to land a possibly massive shot, believing that his arrows were magic-based too, but that wasn't the case. He dealt a paltry sum of damage. Now, Yu Weiying is on the verge of eating up a full-force point-blank attack from an elite boss. The guild leader was not about to let that happen, though. Even though his personal damage felt like being forsaken by God, that is not the case for his trusty fiery frog. Another one of Heaven-Devouring Frog's special fireballs escaped from its maw. Since the Centaur General was still under the magic amplification curse, this one hit for a staggering 82,245 from the back. Before the elite boss could even harm Yu Weiying the Moon Shadow, the horseman had his HP reduced to ashes. After the grueling battle, they have finally brought down the elite floor boss. Rakshasa and his summons almost single-handedly dealt all the damage. They prevail at the cost of 2 floor boss monsters and a ton of close calls. Even Dragon King could not believe his eyes. They were basically carried. Everyone on the 8th floor was notified that the magic domain boss, Centaur General, has been slain. Looking at their valiant leader, the army of archers could not help but praise Rakshasa for being so badass. Everyone could finally ascend to the next floor. Some of them were even ready to be sworn subordinates for a lifetime. Little Princess's eyes were automatically drawn to the deep trenches. They dug it out for a bit more than 10 meters, and it was almost filled to the brim with loot of all kinds. Even with 100 people sharing the pot, this was still too much. The leader handed out one final order for everyone to gather and do a final cleanup of the battlefield. This time it'll be a lot sweeter as they will be sweeping up riches. Additionally, it looks like the elite ranked boss dropped something extremely good among the many demon soul orbs. There was a rare grade S gold war dagger with staggering damage and a special effect of increasing attack speed by 20%. S-grade weapons were more than hard to come by, so this was a massive haul. Just its effect of straight-up raising attack speed by 20% makes it worthy of being such a high-class weapon. Rakshasa proceeded to hold the dagger up for all to see and insisted on giving out the rare weapon on demand. but everyone unanimously decided that the leader should take it as he did most of the heavy lifting anyway. Also, it's this guild leader that brought dignity and confidence to the archers. That alone was priceless. They could not even think of asking for more. At the current market price, hiring a master to clear this floor would have cost 100,000 per person, and since it was an elite boss, it might have been closer to 1 million. Rakshasa essentially stepped into the role of that expert. Giant God was also thinking the same thing. The leader essentially strategized and executed the plan flawlessly. It's only fair that he takes the lion's share of the loot. Still, there are so many treasures that he can't even take everything himself, and as a leader, he wants to keep the interest of all members in mind. Therefore, as long as they contributed to the battle, everyone will get a share. Everyone cheered in awe of the guild leader's generosity. Even little princess, who was essentially useless, was excited to get her cut. Everything should be settled on this floor now. Heading to the next level would be the next natural course of action. From a distance, some conventional party looked at the congregation of archers pouring into the fortress with the boss monster nowhere in sight. They refused to believe that a ragtag guild of the trash class could clear this floor. But no matter how hard they deny it, the evidence was plain to see. There were no centaur cavalry men, and there was no centaur general. To make themselves feel better, they just convinced themselves that the archers probably invited an expert to carry them. The dimensional gate to the 9th floor has also been opened up right after the fall of the general. Bunny Girl was so excited to ascend to the next level as her master was granting her a mission to go up in the magic domain bit by bit. The 9th floor of this magic domain was a whole lot different than the deceptively serene atmosphere of the previous one. This place was full of demonic imagery and every morbid horror that you can think of. When you lay your eyes upon the dark cathedral, you would think that you just stepped into the underworld with how bone-chillingly terrifying it was. The monsters here are said to walk the path of evil, cruel and murderous. Little Princess just wanted to skip this floor altogether. It's making her feel sick. The others were probably feeling the same way too. After such a fierce battle back on the previous floor, it would be wise if everyone goes offline first. They can postpone the 9th floor exploration for tomorrow. It is getting late, and everyone is exhausted from the fight and hauling all the treasure that they could carry. Today was intense and exhilarating. It was a big win for everyone. Moon Shadow came up to Rakshasa to remind him to rest up early. It seems like every time they interact with each other, she couldn't even hide the blush on her cheeks. In her mind, she keeps on trying to confirm whether Rakshasa and that guy in the real world, Zhang Ze, are one and the same. The day after that intense magic domain run, Rakshasa needs to go back to being Zhang Ze and go to school like a normal low-key student. The national martial exam is just around the corner and everyone is stressing out about it, especially handsome fatty Wang Yan. He heard that the council have already appointed 2 positions at the Great Qing Martial Academy for their school. 2 slots at the most prestigious institute are way too little. But Zhang Ze was confident that no matter how many slots there are, he'll enter the Great Qing Martial Academy. Right outside of the gate, it looks like trouble was brewing. Some student named Da Biao was writhing in pain face down on the ground, brought down by a woman. This was pretty much commonplace. There are always school fights when the national martial exam draws nearer and nearer. The woman that was flexing her strength was named He Lili. She was deliberately causing trouble for the students who want to go to the Great Qing Martial Academy. And it looks like it's Zhang Ze's lucky day. He Lili just decided to point at him as the next target of her bullying, calling him a little brother and all that. He just turned around as if not hearing anything. Handsome Fatty identified her as a student of Great Qing Martial Academy already. It looks like ignoring this aggressive lady's words is not the move at all. She just got even more pissed off. So pissed off that she just decided to run in, fully intending to harm Zhang Ze, calling him a brat and all those childish insults. And based on her form, it looks like she's not pulling any punches either. She just beat someone she doesn't even know. Bitches be crazy? Man. He Li came in hot with a massive swing of a kick that would have hurt had it landed. But Zhang Ze reacted quickly, grabbing her by the legs, getting a view of the forbidden fruit in the process.
You got me.
This prompted He Lili to reevaluate her life choices as she pulled back as fast as she could. The lady reckons that the kid in front of her might have quite a high agility stat to dodge that kick. Still, her pride was wounded, and she wanted to double down, priming another kick from way up high. Zhang Ze easily ducked this one as well. He even had enough mental acuity to evaluate that this girl might be a leg attack specialist. From what he remembers in Liu Yueying's journal, it is quite easy to counter this type of fighter. You just have to find the right timing, and when their balance is off, you strike with a leg attack of your own. preferably at a lower angle. He only read about it once, but that was enough to use it against the overbearing lady, laying her down on the concrete in humiliation. He immediately became a lot more apprehensive after experiencing that. She's seen that move before. It was the cloud-concealed moon. She can still recall how both her master and young lady used this move before. Before she could interrogate Zhang Ze, the young man was already casually bidding farewell, even taunting her that they'll see each other again in the Great Qing Martial Academy. For the other students, Zhang Ze was just known as the reserve cleaner for the martial room. Now, they have a new perspective on him after seeing that amazing display of skill. The evening came, and it was time to explore the 9th floor of the magic domain again. Zhang Ze overslept, and now he's half an hour late to the party. He looked through his unread messages and saw everyone from Giant God to Arrow through the heart barraging him with chats asking where he was. He just decided to wait around on the platform for now. There's also one particular person patiently waiting for him on the starting point. The guy called him guild leader, so it must be an archer. When asked if he's one of his 100-man archer army, the dude just introduced himself as nobody but you, a loyal follower and member of the Archers Guild. Rakshasa added too many people to his friends list last time that he can't really remember everyone. Nobody but you seems to be in a hurry to invite the leader back to the 8th floor to save their brothers. That was odd, as Giant God was supposed to lead everyone to explore the dungeon without him for now. Nobody but you started tearing up. He explained that they didn't have the capability to explore the 9th, so they wanted to get stronger on the 8th floor first. In there, they were immediately attacked by cavalrymen and were caught in a dead end after panicking. Being the sympathetic leader that he is, Rakshasa would naturally want to lend a helping hand before anything worse happens. Unbeknownst to him, as soon as nobody but you turned around to lead the way, the rascal flashed a sinister grin. So we're back to the serene view of the bountiful 8th floor, this time in the outer areas where the rock formations are. This place does not look like your normal ravine. It has wooden structures built all around it. But this is where the rascal led Rakshasa. He was starting to get suspicious vibes from all the flags and defense structures littered all around. It must have been left by the Centaur army. And in the heart of the ravine, a tall watchtower stood upright. Nobody but you've indicated that this was where the other Archer brothers were trapped. The rascal wanted him to rush in like a hero, but Rakshasa took a brief pause after noticing something odd. There are 7 armored Centaur cavalrymen waiting at the foot of the towering watchtower. Still, he can't ignore the rascal's pleas. Saving his people is a priority. He wanted to do this right, so Rakshasa equipped his S-rank bow and took to summoning one of his monsters to aid in the rescue. It was about time to debut the latest and strongest addition to the team, the elite rank boss of this very floor, the Centaur General. Nobody but you looked at this summoning and felt conflicted for a second. This horseman is the type of monster that could solo annihilate armies. Rakshasa told him to calm down as this is just one of his summoned beasts. The first order of business is directing the Centaur General to engage in an attack. The monster psyched himself up, howling gutturally and calling the attention of the armored Centaur cavalrymen. It did not waste any more time and rushed in with its impeccable top speed forward. The centaurs that have gathered at the foot of the watchtower immediately turned their attention to the monster of their own race running in. The general towered over the normal mobs not only in stature but also in raw power. That's only natural as it's the commander of the beasts after all. Rakshasa then ordered nobody but you to do what he did back in the fortress, to lure the monsters himself so they can save everyone else. While the leader was providing cover fire to his summoned beast, the rascal quietly clicked his tongue in frustration. This was not going according to his plan at all. Still, nobody but you had no other choice but to play along and rush to the entrance of the watchtower by himself. Rakshasa just wanted to end this rescue mission as quickly as possible. He was starting to get a weird feeling about everything about this scenario. This would be no problem at all given that he has the king of this floor under his command to bully through the cavalrymen. That odd feeling kept on growing as the supposed trapped archers are not getting out of the watchtower yet. There must be some underway. He called the Centaur General back to his position just to be safe. And the monster actually stepped on something invisible on the way back to his side. Rakshasa was right. This has the makings of a nefarious plan. An assassin wielding double daggers was sneaking around undetected near him. That was an easy kill for the Centaur General once the assassin was fully visible out in the open. Get wrecked, boy. But the nefarious business did not stop there. An arrow flew down from the top of the watchtower aiming for Rakshasa's heart. Fortunately, he has the agility and reaction time to dodge the damn thing. It also helped that the sneak attack came from some inferior archer. It It was now crystal clear that the traitorous nobody but you deceived him to get into this predicament. The rascal archer finally dropped all pretenses, smiling and laughing maliciously at the top of the watchtower. He asserted Rakshasa couldn't blame him. If anything, he should blame himself for offending the members of Dawn. There's currently a 15 million bounty on his head. A lot of people would go crazy for that money. Rakshasa heard all that yapping and just boasted that paltry arrows and daggers won't be nearly enough to get rid of him. In response to the fatal attack that the rascal tried to unleash, he also released an S-rank arrow of his own. This one has the speed and force to hit nobody but you right in the shoulder. But the traitor has another trick up his sleeves. This is not just any ravine. This is the Centaur training camp. With all of his other traitorous cohorts, the rascal revealed that the new Centaur general is about to respawn, and unless Rakshasa could kill hundreds of cavalrymen before that, escape won't be an option. As if on cue, the countless cavalrymen reinforcements started flooding in from every angle. This has put the guild leader in quite a massive pinch at first glance. A cascade of fierce beasts is now rushing in a chaotic formation. The ones forced to endure the brunt of this charge were Rakshasa and his lone summoned beast. Now that the centaurs have finally set their sights on an intruder to their camp, Rakshasa was as good as dead in the eyes of the traitors. They just need to record his death as evidence to claim the juicy bounty. He tasked the general to deal with the initial collision while he looks around for a way out. He took the precious random teleportation scroll out of his inventory, still salty for being played by traitorous scums. But he ultimately chose not to use the scroll. The bastard started thinking that Rakshasa might have just given up, or maybe he wants to beg for mercy. Either way, he's a dead man today, and they'll be rich later. Nobody but you won't accept any kind of begging for mercy, but if he can bring more than 15 million, then the traitors might consider sparing him. Time is ticking, and the centaurs are inching closer and closer to his position with their blades ready to tear him limb from limb. The traitors watched with glee, recording the incoming slaughter with a handheld camera. They were just waiting for that 15 million bounty to cash out. But Rakshasa seemed oddly calm, and the traitors made a massive mistake. Right now, he's not the one in danger, they are. For taking advantage of his kindness, they must pay the price in blood. The arrogant and ignorant trio still was not getting it. They continued with their tireless tirade with ugly smirks on their faces as 500 centaurs draw closer. Rakshasa just stood still. He was already in the attack range of the incoming centaur cavalrymen. He didn't move a muscle while his eyes were fixed on the watchtower. Then a smirk went up behind his mask. There was one thing that these traitors did not take into account. He already told them that he's the one in the driver's seat here. He's coming onto them with the wrath of 500 centaurs led by an elite summoned general. The dumbasses are still not comprehending the situation. To them, it doesn't make sense that the guild leader was still standing in the middle unharmed as the centaurs seemingly avoid where he was standing. Dumb, dumber, and dumbest stood there trying to make sense of what's happening. They were right in thinking that Rakshasa couldn't possibly summon 500 centaurs at once. What they did not take into account was that a summoned beast can still perform its function as the floor boss. The centaur general Rakshasa named Old Cobb handed down the order to surround the tower with the horde. Old Cobb raised a red flag up into the air, signaling the order for every troop to charge in with reckless abandon. Leading the push was Old Cobb himself with his highly destructive spears as the literal spearhead. With the organized effort under a single banner, it did not take long for the chaotic horde to neatly fulfill their roles in formation. The Three Stooges were totally lost at this point. They turned to their dumbass boss. Nobody but you, but the guy did not have any recourse or answer of any kind. Centaurs came in from every possible angle, using their blades as saws to take down the wooden foundations of the tall watchtower. The traitors fell down from the high ground, plunging into their deaths at the hands of gravity and the centaurs below. Rakshasa had an ironclad pledge that he follows. Deceiving him more into certain miserable death. If you come for the king, you best not miss. As he exits the scene after cleaning up the trash, a hooded figure hidden on top of the ravine watched everything and saw just how tricky and ruthless Rakshasa can really be. This mysterious hooded figure was a spy sent by the members of Dawn to report on the matters regarding the assassination of Rakshasa. Unfortunately for them, today's plan was an utter failure. But the members of Dawn have only grown more and more interested in Rakshasa's business, methods, and growth. When Rakshasa went back up to the 9th floor, he just got back in time to welcome the party back after exploring the horrors that the 9th floor holds. Arrow through the heart reported to his guild leader about how tricky the whole floor was. There were traps everywhere, and the place was littered with pagan monsters in all corners. According to the Magic Domain Guidebook, those pagans are the main monsters of this area. Some groups wear red, while others wear green. After the red-clothed believers die, their corpses undergo changes. They become ugly creatures that continue to battle adventurers with their damage and defense drastically enhanced. Ordinary attacks are essentially useless against them. The green-clothed believers are even worse. Their damage and defense aren't that high, so they can be killed a lot easier. However, they cast a dying curse on the person that eliminates them. The curse effects include, but aren't limited to, weakening of defense, damage, or speed, constant drops in HP, dizziness, and many more. They can cast dozens of different curses that last for an hour. But Giant God asserted the scariest part of this floor was still the final boss, the Archbishop. It's a tricky one to deal with. The entire boss room is filled with fatal snake venom. The snake venom filled in the room has toxin effects that cause everyone's HP to drop constantly. So constant detoxification is a must if you want to survive and defeat the troublesome Archbishop. Also, that boss will only make its move once the pesky venomous snakes have been wiped out. Just like the tricky Blackfin Wizard, this fellow uses dark magic that drops everyone's attributes to 0. That would essentially render anyone useless. The effect lasts until the Archbishop has been eliminated. Furthermore, once the boss dies, it doesn't really die totally, it just enters a second, much more troublesome phase. Its body will be possessed by a litany of evil spirits, causing it to turn into a massive demonic creature. To completely annihilate the demon, at least 10 objectively talented adventurers must participate in battle to even stand a sliver of a chance. Otherwise, no teams should take the risk. The wise thing to do is to enlist the help of a support adventurer who can remove curse effects. That way, they can actually stand a chance in the fight, but that won't be so easy. Most support types are like Little Princess that can only recover HP rather than dispel curses. They can also utilize revitalization tonics. Those things can withstand curse effects while simultaneously enhancing the user's attributes. But those tonics are very costly. It was so expensive that it's reasonable to call it a rip-off. And even if you have the money, the supplies are so scarce that it's unsure if they could even secure one. On an unrelated note, Rakshasa didn't see Liu Yuwei today, so he asked the party what was up with that. It turned out that something came up at home and he had to apply for the martial volunteer. If that's the case, then it might be prudent to take a break today. Too many people are still under curse effects, so they're not in good shape to fight even if they wanted to. Waiting and planning are all that they can do for now. This situation is just way too difficult to maneuver. They'd really need to find some capable supports. Back in the massive and thriving Liu Manor, the lights are still on in the middle of the night. Liu Yuwei was kitted out with a martial arts guy that hugs her figure while wearing a serious expression on her beautiful face, karate drip on point. In front of her was another person wearing stylish sneakers. This lively lady's name is Tang Qiyaowei. She's the little cousin of Yu Weiying, and it looks like they are about to engage in a friendly spar in this massive gymnasium. Liu Yuwei insisted that Tang Qiyaowei should stop pretending to be a helpless girl, as she is Jiangdong's 40th campus wrestling champion and the Great Qing Martial Academy's unofficial admissions officer. It's only natural since she awakened an SS-rank talent and has long joined the National Security Bureau as a recruit. Even if she were that talented, Yu Weiying still teases her for not being able to join the Great Qing's A-class. Every year, the A-class is joined by concealed talents. Just in Yu Weiying's second-year A-class alone, many students are ranked formidable in the magic domain. In the real world, they are second-level magic domain experts. Still, Tang Qiyaowei was feeling confident in her chances of getting into the elite class, trashing Yu Weiying's batch for being less than lustrous. While the two were exchanging blows, a familiar woman barged in respectfully. It was that bully, Healy, but she is evidently standing with more respect and fear now, addressing her young lady and Lady Yu Weiying. Tang Qiyaowei immediately paused the spar after seeing that her attendant seemed to be hurt. She explained that after scouting out a random school, he encountered a punk that knows the Tang family's martial technique. This was a serious matter for Qiyaowei, but Healy was 100% positive that the young man really did beat her up with the secret techniques of the family. They did not expect that a nuisance would show up now. She reckons that the young man must be born from one of her old man's countless mistresses in his womanizing days. Qiyaowei must get to the bottom of this. She's always been like this. At the first sign of a technique leak, she always assumes that it's a bastard sibling. Still, Yu Weiying couldn't help but praise this cousin of hers for being so talented in combat. The next day came, and it is the long-awaited time to submit everyone's application for the martial exam. Everyone should be set on which university they're going to apply for. Most of these people around Zhang Ze are setting their sights low and realistic, planning to apply for the countless third-rate universities in the area. While he was about to enter the building, Zhang Ze received a call from Pan about something that came up. His sister had not come to class today, and Pan was just checking in on what was up with that. This alarmed Zhang Ze immensely, given that they left for school earlier in the morning. After hanging up on Pan, he intended to call Xiao Feng, but he received a text from an unknown number instead. It was a photo of his little sister. She was blindfolded, tied up, and gagged. The text warned him to pull out of the national martial exam if he wants to see his sister back home safe and sound. No tricks, no police, or she'll be as good as dead. The first possibility Zhang Ze thought of was that his magic domain identity has been exposed, but the motivation to get him out of the martial exam wouldn't make sense. He doesn't know what to do or who to turn to at this point in time. It took him a while to remember that he has other people in his life now, namely, the mysterious beauty, Xiang Xiaoqin. He immediately dialed the number on her calling card and cut to the chase. He needs a favor, he needs help to find and save his sister no matter what. Xiang Xiaoqin has deep ties with a vast information network of the National Security Bureau, so she immediately tracked down the text coming from City West ruins. In one of the abandoned buildings, 3 criminals were huddled around a campfire. They are the ones that dared to kidnap Xiao Feng. They don't really know who handed down the order, but they're making money, so who cares? It was just 3 goons chilling in the ruins when suddenly, an uninvited guest barged in. They've had a lot to drink at this point, but they are still sober enough to see that a person just showed up out of nowhere. Of course, it was the incredibly pissed off Zhang Ze looking for his sister. The 3 stooges really made a poor decision to do this job. The dumbass boss tried to warn him not to come any closer or they'll beat him up while stumbling on his words. That earned him a no-holds-barred kick to the goddamn face, knocking out a tooth and sending him to dreamland for just a few moments. Stating that they stood no chance against the raging Zhang Ze, the 3 immediately changed tone and kneeled while profusely apologizing, assuring him that Xiao Feng wasn't harmed in any way. But this won't do. Zhang Ze needs to know who the hell ordered them to do this farce. He'll only spare their lives if they rat the real boss out. The curly-haired leader of the 3 stooges immediately spilled the beans out of fear. It was Zhang Hao, Zhang Ze's schoolmate. That guy clocked him as the biggest hindrance to getting into the Great Qing Martial Academy. If that's what Zhang Hao was thinking, then he wasn't really wrong. But kidnapping Zhang Ze's sister just to get into the Great Qing Martial Academy is a new kind of low, a despicable act. Hearing this, he secured his sister and immediately made a run back to the university where the application submission was underway. The sun has set, and it has gotten quite late now. Zhang Ze came in running like a bolt of lightning, parting the crowd on the way to the gymnasium. Inside was Zhang Hao. He was just getting the text that the plan has failed and Zhang Ze is truly not as easy to deal with as he had imagined. Right on cue, the young man kicked down the door with apparent anger. He needs Zhang Hao to step the out right now. When you mess with the bull, you'll get the horns, and Zhang Ze is aroused as hell. Wait, that came out wrong. Just to force him to give up on applying to Great Qing Martial Academy, this scumbag really went as far as ordering the kidnap of his sister. What he did was plainly sickening. Zhang Hao admits that this young man was way more powerful than himself, so he had to get twistedly creative to achieve his goals. If you plan this far, of course, he had a contingent plan prepared in case something like this happens. To get into that prestigious institution, Zhang Hao was prepared to eliminate all hindrances with no exception. He took a purple bottle out and chugged down a deathly violet tonic while maintaining intense eye contact. This cannot be good for Zhang Ze. The young man was still seething with rage, but the target of that anger was now smiling menacingly as an aura of malicious death surrounded Zhang Hao. Drugs are bad. Remember that. Zhang Ze had a bad feeling about this development. He had no idea what this rich prick had just drunk, but that malevolent aura was no joke. After the miasma surrounded the rich prick, it started taking effect on his system, making his eyes bloodshot and darkening his constitution. His body had also undergone an abnormal rate of enhancement that should not have been possible with any other normal drug on the market. He got jacked to the point where his muscles ripped through his clothes. He didn't want to reveal what he had drunk, quipping that Zhang Ze could just ask what it was directly from the King of Hell after their fight. The first collision was a fist-to-fist situation. It seemed like both of them were surprised by how freakishly strong the other was. But in this exchange, Zhang Ze was the one sent flying away, losing by just a little bit. it was only normal as that punch from the rich prick must have been 2,000 caddies or around 1,200 kilograms of force. He was starting to get a grimmer feeling by the second because of that terrible concoction that the prick had downed just a second ago, no matter how many times he asked. Zhang Ze just kept repeating his King of Hell remark. The rich prick looked like he was enjoying every bit of this fight. He looked like a battle-crazed addict with the way he was happily exchanging blows without any regard for his own well-being. He laughed maniacally as he continued provoking Zhang Ze to fight back instead of just dodging the whole time. Our boy was being patient. He needed to know more before going sicko mode on this guy. It did not help that a single wrong move or a dodge that came late for just a split second could shatter his bones like how the concrete all around the gymnasium was being chipped up. The rich prick tried to goad him to fight as a man, and by that, he meant just a pure contest of strength, just a head-on fight without dodging like Neanderthals. Thankfully, Zhang Ze was not that foolish. He'd rather stay patient and focus on the exposed weaknesses. It looked like the tables had been reversed. The rich prick was the one who had grown angrier, jumping in without a plan or technique, just a closed fist and unbridled rage. Zhang Ze was ready to counterattack at any junction, though. And just as the mindless brute entered his range of attack, Zhang Ze unleashed a blow to create some distance between them. It looked like technique won over brute force in this round. This punch was revenge for what this rich prick had done to his innocent sister. Zhang Ze kneeled on the floor, writhing in pain and experiencing the drawbacks of the tonic he had just drunk, all while calling Zhang Ze a vile coward for some reason. As he was weathering the pain, one of his hands started tensing up as if waiting for the right timing to do something. Then, that same evil smile from earlier started surfacing on the rich prick's face once again. He was about to do some crazy messed up stuff. Zhang Ze's sharp sight caught wind of this particular sequence of moves and could not help but feel like he was in trouble now. From a pathetic kneeling position, the rich prick managed to close the gap in a split second by utilizing the enhanced muscles in his entire body to leap and reach his hand out to put our boy in a chokehold. This time, technique did not win. With how fast that move was, Zhang Ze had no hope of dodging something that quick, unless they were inside the magic domain, of course. He was now pinned under the brute while getting the life choked out of him. He tried his hardest to shake off the tight grip to no avail. The chokehold was draining his strength and blocking his airways. The oxygen could not go up to his brain, and Zhang Ze was now just a few seconds from passing out or worse. Fortunately for him, an external force easily knocked out the roided rich prick from his position on top of Zhang Ze. This came as quite a shock. He entered this gymnasium expecting a 1 versus 1 to the death. This external force was terrifying, to say the least. It sent the juiced-up rich prick monster flying through the air. He would have gone a lot farther had it not been for the gymnasium wall taking the brunt of the momentum and almost shattering as a result. The unexpected backup was none other than the mysterious beauty, Miss Xiang Xiao Qin. Zhang Ze already knew she was strong, but he did not expect her to be that strong. One move had generated an apparent after effect on the immediate surroundings as if her kicks were as fast as a bullet. While still holding the flawless pose, she asked Zhang Ze if he was alright. Zhang Ze was still recovering from the effects of that brutal chokehold, trying to get air back into his head while coughing. If Miss Xiang had come any later, he would have surely met with the King of Hell like that rich prick kept on repeating. She also brought some National Security Bureau people along to help with the cleanup and cover-up of the situation. They intended to bring that rich kid, Zhang Ze, straight back to their labs to study the abnormal tonic. He was completely catatonic. It was hard to tell whether it was because of the bullet kick or the weird and malevolent concoction he had just so casually consumed. It was probably a little bit of both. It's still a mystery to everyone what that brat drank to enhance his strength at such superhuman levels. Miss Xiang came here for that exact reason. What Zhang Ze drank could have possibly been a prohibited tonic from the magic domain that she and the Bureau have been investigating recently. This came as quite a shock to Zhang Ze. It would have come as a shock to any adventurer. A prohibited tonic from the magic domain is unheard of since the laws of nature prohibit items from the magic domain from being brought out into reality. Miss Xiang explained that many entries in the magic domain guidebook and what they think of as common sense were no longer applicable now. For the past year or two, a group of criminals have been manufacturing a special kind of vessel used to bring items from the magic domain out into the real world. What the prick drank could possibly be one of those contrabands. They'll need to interrogate Zhang Ze for the specifics to get a full grasp of the situation. Xia Feng was also safe and sound, eager to reunite with her dear big brother escorted by the authorities. She was just so scared in that situation, she has started to develop a negative feeling for Tian Feng City. Thankfully, Her big bro is always there. They should get home for now so Miss Xiang can do her job peacefully. Zhang Ze owes her big time, so he insisted that she should contact him if she needs anything. Xiao Feng nervously asked her brother if he managed to apply for the martial exam today despite everything. He just assured her that he'll definitely get into Great Qing Martial Academy, no matter what, to earn enough money to cure her illness. It's gotten quite late, and the time to enter the creepy halls of the 9th floor of the magic domain has come once again. Rakshasa was late to go in once again, worrying Li Yuying a little bit. Now that the guild leader is finally here, they now have everyone on board, but they still don't have a concrete plan to pass this cursed floor. Without support class adventurers, it is just impossible. Rakshasa already made a request post on the forum that guaranteed a portion of the dropped loot, but not a single qualified support has reached out yet. Powerful ones are just way too hard to find. Dragon King brought up that he actually knew an extremely powerful support adventurer who has a following of other support class people. It was quite puzzling why Dragon King would withhold such an important piece of info from everyone. He didn't really want to speak up because the person in his mind is greedy and insatiable, someone with a very large appetite. With how that man usually does things, it is possible that he'll take on the job if he was promised to take all the loot away for himself. That was quite a shock to hear. Now they see why Dragon King held out until now. That supposed expert has a bigger appetite than even Little Princess. Dragon King added that the man was one of his dad's classmates, the only support class in the National Security Bureau. He even founded an organization dedicated to support classes. Those achievements alone paint a picture of someone truly excellent. With no other recourse, Rakshasa has decided that they'll go with that guy no matter the cost. He just likes to see how skilled that support expert really is.